Welcome to Church History Insights and Questions. Good to have you. Good to have you along. I've always been interested in church history, and the life of Emma Smith, the wife of the prophet Joseph Smith, has always intrigued me and fascinated me. And I think she was quite an interesting character. Some people have described her as resilient. Some people have not used very complimentary terms towards her over history, over time. But I wanted to dig a bit deeper into her life. And so we're going to do that probably over a number of episodes, as it were, probably 4. So Emma Hale Smith Bidamon, July 10th, 1804, she was born, and she died on April the 30th, 1879. There are lots of histories that focus on the prophet Joseph Smith, and of course all of those biographies, they also talk a lot about Emma, particularly in the early days, so we can read from lots of different books here. Joseph Smith, The Architect of Mormonism, topical biography by Ganesh Cherian, Life of the Joseph Smith, the Prophet by George Q. Cannon, this well-known Joseph Smith, Rough Stone Rolling by Richard Lyman Bushman, Lucy Mack Smith, The History of Joseph Smith by his mother, no bias there at all. The Rise and Fall of an American Prophet, Joseph Smith, John G. Turner. John Turner is not a member of the church, and so his history kind of brings a sort of a refreshing outsider view approach. Form Brody was one of the first historians to write about Joseph Smith. No Man Knows My History. She was the niece of David O. McKay. Dan Vogel's book, Charisma Under Pressure, and American Zion by Benjamin Park. I recommend all of those books. They're very useful and interesting to read, get a lot of information. The one that's highlighted in the yellow background there is Mormon Enigma, because that's focused upon Emma Smith, or Emma Hale Smith in the title there, by Linda King Newell and Valine Tippett Avery, and that again is definitely worth a read. So how did it all start? Well, Emma was, as we said, was born on July the 10th, 1804, to Isaac Hales and Elizabeth Lewis, both of whom came from old New England families, and the history of the Hales family, Emma's family, obviously a big family, nine children, that they were quite well off and well-to-do, well respected in the Harmony, Pennsylvania neighborhood. Emma grew to be quite tall, described as being 5'9" by Newell and Tippett, and by historian Mark Staker adds another inch and makes her 5'10". Lucy Mack Smith, the mother of Joseph Smith, Emma Smith's mother-in-law, she stayed with Joseph and Emma on the land that belonged to Isaac and Elizabeth Hales, and so she got to know the Hales quite well. And Lucy Mack Smith found Emma's family, as she describes, pleasantly situated and living in good style, and deemed them intelligent and highly respectable. Isaac Hale, a bit about Isaac. He was a hunter, farmer, and he was in the Methodist tradition. Methodism became popular in the Susquehanna region in the early 1800s, and Emma began attending with her mother at the age of 7. A family tradition suggests that Isaac Hale overheard his young daughter Emma praying for him in the woods near their home, and that this contributed to his spiritual conversion. That might be more folklore and family lore, family tradition, than absolutely guaranteed to be accurate. Now, the relationship between Joseph and Emma was always an interesting one. And how did it start? Well, it's a pretty well-known story that Joseph Smith had traveled to Harmony, Pennsylvania, to do some treasure digging for Josiah Stowell. Josiah Stowell was again quite a well-to-do landowner, and he was convinced that treasure existed, riches, gold, silver was on his land. And he had heard the reputation that Joseph Smith Jr. was a very adept diviner and seer and could see buried treasure. So he hired Joseph Smith Sr. to come along, and Joseph Smith Jr. came along, and they were actually staying on a property on Isaac and Elizabeth Hale's land. And so obviously the Smiths and the Hales got to know each other, and Isaac Hale in 1834 he left quite a bit of information about his relationship with Joseph, how he met him, what he thought about him, what he thought about his treasure seeking operation, and also what he thought about the Book of Mormon and the gold plates, etc. And here's a brief quote from Isaac Hale. He says, "Young Smith made several visits at my house and at length asked my consent to his marrying my daughter Emma. This I refused and gave my reasons for so doing, some of which were that he was a stranger and followed a business that I could not approve. He then left the place. Not long after this he returned, and while I was absent from home, carried off my daughter into the state of New York, where they were married without my approbation or consent," close quote. And they were in fact married on January the 18th, 1827. So that's 7 years after Joseph Smith's first vision experience, and it's the same year that he's going to get the plates, although it'll be later on in the year. And they're married in South Bainbridge, which was later called Afton in New York, by Zechariah Tarbell. Now that brings us to the night of September the 22nd, 1827. And that was the night that Joseph Smith was going to, under the direction of the angel that visited, he was going to get his hands on the gold plates. He had been, as you might recall, he'd been going back to the Hill over the last 3 years, and now this was the opportunity. So on the night, Emma went with Joseph to the Hill Cumorah, excuse me, on Joseph Knight's horse and wagon. Joseph returned to the wagon carrying a bundle in his coat. This information comes from his mother, Lucy Mack Smith, in the history that she writes. Now, Emma interacted with the plates on a number of occasions and in a number of different ways. And the plates were under her bed. Emma asked her brother-in-law, a carpenter, for a locked box to hold the plates, which they secured safely under their bed at night. That information comes primarily from Isaac Hale. And then moving on, Emma supplied a linen tablecloth to cover the plates during the day while Joseph translated. Emma felt the plates through the cloth as she moved them to clean. Now this account, this statement, is part of her last testimony, and of course it was written many, many years after the events. And so historians tell us that we have to be cautious about information that's coming back from a long time later. But this Emma speaks a lot out in her last testimony. A lot of information is included in that last testimony of Sister Emma in the Saints Herald, October the 1st, 1879. I think the Saints Herald was the newspaper that the reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I think that was what they were using. As we know, Emma became a member of that church later on in her life, which we'll get to and cover that in a subsequent episode. Emma the scribe. Emma says, quote, "I frequently wrote day after day." She later recalled, often sitting at the table close by him. He sitting with his face buried in his hat, with the stone in it, and dictating hour after hour, with nothing between us. He had neither manuscript nor book to read from. If he had had anything of the kind, he could not have concealed it from me. The plates often lay on the table without any attempt at concealment, wrapped in a small linen tablecloth. I once felt of the plates as they thus lay on the table, tracing their outline and shape. And decades later, Emma says she marveled at what had happened. She recalled that at the time of their marriage, Joseph could neither write nor dictate a coherent and well-worded letter, let alone dictating a book like the Book of Mormon. That quote is very prevalent and very well known, and is often seen in reference to the Book of Mormon, the translation of the Book of Mormon, the coming forth of the Book of Mormon. Emma goes on to say that he, Joseph Smith, began again where he left off. Some say that is a surprising detail describing Joseph Smith's behavior after taking a break. Emma says, quote, "When returning after meals or after interruptions, he would at once begin where he had left off without either seeing the manuscript or having any portion of it read to him. This was a usual thing for him to do." Emma then offered her opinion. It would have been improbable that a learned man could do this, and for one so ignorant and unlearned as he was, it was simply impossible, close quote. Excuse me. Now, in 1882, Apostle Franklin D. Richards saw the stone, and and it was in Church President John Taylor's possession. And Apostle Richards recorded in his diary that, quote, the pouch containing it, the stone, was made by Emma, meaning Emma Smith, the wife of Joseph Smith. So Emma would have been very familiar with the seer stone. She made a pouch for it, and she was very involved with the translation of the Book of Mormon, particularly in the early part of the translation of the Book of Mormon. She wrote while Joseph dictated the first part of the plates through her first pregnancy. She later scribed for the translation of the Bible. So in about 1830 to 1831, Joseph Smith and Sidney Rigdon are working on a translation of the King James Version of the Bible. They're going through the Bible and they're adding comments and clarifying verses, etc. And Emma was one of the scribes who worked with Joseph and Sidney on that project. Now, this brings us to the Book of Mormon is published 1829, 1830. The church is organized officially on April the 6th, 1830. And according to Newell and Avery, the no accounts of the proceedings of the organization of the church in Fayette, New York, on April the 6th, include Emma's name, which is surprising. If she were there, it would be surprising that she would not be named. The fact that her name isn't there does not necessarily mean she wasn't there, but it is supposed that she remained in Harmony, Pennsylvania, and that would make sense from a family caring point of view. Emma is baptized into Church of Christ. That is the name of the church in 1830. It was not then the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It was the Church of Christ. And later, through different iterations, it was renamed the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It went from Church of Christ, and the reason it was renamed was because there were a lot of other churches called the Church of Christ. And it then went, I think, to the Church of the Latter-day Saints. So the name Jesus Christ was removed from the name of the church at one point. And as we see there, it wasn't fully come to the way that it is shown now with the capital the and with the hyphenated latter day until 1851. But Emma is baptized into the church by Oliver Cowdery at Colesville, New York. However, because of mob violence, interruptions immediately following the baptism, and 2 periods of Joseph being under arrest, Emma was not confirmed at that time. Section 25 comes in July, also in July of 1830. At this time, Emma was 25 years old. The Lord spoke to her through Joseph, her husband, into Doctrine and Covenants section 25, and saying, amongst other things, saying, quote, "Hearken unto the voice of the Lord your God, while I speak unto you, Emma Smith, my daughter. For verily I say unto you, behold, thy sins are forgiven thee, and thou art an elect lady whom I have called. The office of thy calling shall be for a comfort unto thy servant Joseph Smith Jr., thy husband, in his afflictions with consoling words in the spirit of meekness. Thou shalt lay aside the things of this world and seek for the things of a better. And it shall be given thee also to make a selection of sacred hymns, etc. Close quote. And so, as we know, Emma Smith gets involved in the creation of the first hymn book and in other subsequent hymn books, not only in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, excuse me, but also in the reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So the confirmation, which didn't take place in July, actually does take place in August. Emma Smith was confirmed a church member and received the gift of the Holy Ghost in August 1830. The picture on the left is of the property that Joseph Smith and Emma Smith lived in during their spell in Harmony, Pennsylvania. As I said earlier, it was part of the land that it was owned by Isaac and Elizabeth Hale. And late in August 1830, Newell Knight's wagon rumbled into the yard again. He had come to move Emma and Joseph to the Whitmer farm at Fayette, New York. They loaded a few belongings into the wagon, locked the door behind them, and left the rest of their furniture inside. This is a very difficult time for Emma. She, as it says here, Emma bade farewell to her parents. It was a very difficult parting for her. Hope for a reconciliation between her father and her husband Joseph had evaporated. And the sad thing is, at the age of 26/27, Emma would never see either Harmony or her mother or her father ever again. It's a very sad moment in Emma's life and in the life of Isaac and Elizabeth Hale, to see their gifted and treasured daughter go off, and they would never see each other again. Not mentioned previously, but Emma was well educated and a gifted horsewoman, and a very accomplished person all round. And so that's the end of this little part, because we've taken her up to the time that she leaves Harmony. In the next episode, we'll run through her life and some of the things that happened to her in Kirtland. After that, Kirtland and Missouri. After that, we'll look at what happened in Nauvoo, and then the final episode will be, part 4 would be on what happened to her after Joseph Smith is killed, and what happens to her life then. Hope you've enjoyed this episode. Please like it if you like it, and if you haven't subscribed to Church History Insights and Questions, please do so. And if you have any comments, positive or negative, please feel free to leave them. Always love to get comments. See you on the next one. Bye.